Should we do this for the beach? Maybe my next one I will.
Yeah, you totally should.
Alrighty, I think let's jump in because I want to make sure we have enough time for questions and everything at the end. So hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kata. I'm the head of People and Culture for Credit Sesame Canada. We're here today with Jamie. Jamie's going to be talking about tips on how to burst the information bubble and build a listening culture. Before we jump into the introduction for Jamie, a few housekeeping rules. So you'll see the chat on the side, which Jeff has already used. Use this to interact during the presentation. We want to get everyone involved and keep it fun. You can post your questions in there. And throughout the conversation, I'll be monitoring that. And then when it comes time at the end, we'll be doing 10 minutes for moderated Q&A. We'll be pulling your questions from there, but you can keep throwing them in. If you have any really burning questions and you're like, I want to get on stage, I want some FaceTime with Jamie, please feel free to raise your hand. When you do that, we can invite you onto the stage and your video will pop up much like Jamie's and myself. So you can do that. Also at the bottom of your screen, you'll see this little smiley face, like little emojis. So if there's anything that Jamie says that really, really resonates with you, you can react to it. Please feel free to use the emojis, like the thumbs up, there we go. So yeah, please feel free to use those. Also, please be respectful with your questions. We want to keep this fun for everyone. And if anyone is active on Twitter or Instagram or your LinkedIn during this presentation, please use the hashtag SHRC21. And also, if you want to interact with Jamie and her team on Instagram and Twitter, please use @WeHeartStartups. So to jump in, this is Jamie Savage. She is the founder of the leadership agency, the recruitment partner of choice for North America's fastest growing startups. The leadership agency gets to help build the most impressive companies of our generation. Jamie has hired and trained over 20 professional recruiters, led teams of recruitment directors, and created an award-winning company-wide training program. She has played an integral recruitment role in 2 major IPOs and was the youngest and first leader of Canada's largest sales recruitment agency. So with all of that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jamie.
Great, thank you, Kata. Thank you everyone for joining this session. I'm so excited to be here and connecting with all of you. As we know and we have experienced, the HR community has been brilliantly resilient and transformative in guiding us through this new normal. And I applaud all of us for this. As a leader and someone who had to completely redesign our business practice, adapt to the new norms and the new requirements of our clients and the new needs of our people. I knew that this couldn't be done by relying exclusively on my comfort zone, obtaining information only from my listening bubble, or by reacting to the situation. I knew that I had to learn how to listen and really hear what people were saying, and then take that information and allow growth and change for my business. And I'm really glad I did. So I ask you to challenge yourself, not only question whether or not you're listening, but who you are listening to. So thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to presenting on how I can help you build a listening culture. If your building is on fire, go grab a hose. It's a very simple statement. If your building is on fire, it's not the time to be drafting new architectural plans on how to build a fireproof building. It's also not the time to be lamenting over why your building was not fireproof in the first place. As HR leaders and professionals, our buildings were on fire. This time last year, workplace communication took an immediate backseat as employees and employers rushed to work from home, adopt new technology, and struggled and still struggling with mental health and well-being. According to the CDC, there's been an increase of 27% of new diagnoses and relapses in mental health in just the past 6 months. We are now in a new stage of growth and rebuild, and it starts with listening. You won't find a course on listening in many business schools, but it's an essential skill set for leaders if they hope to counteract the multitude of forces that are driving them to believing that they know everything there is to know about what's happening in their organizations. So let's define a few of these terms which are both critical in building listening cultures and will have a direct impact on employee engagement and the growth of your business. What even is a listening bubble? I know I've mentioned it a few times without reference. It's the title of this presentation, essentially. And the best way to think about it is that leaders have access generally to more lines of communication, but that information that flows to them can often be compromised. Warning signals are tamped down, key facts omitted, and data is typically given a very positive spin. Listening bubbles are like a non-digital algorithm. You are surrounding yourself with people and information that you've curated that you want to listen to and see on a continuous basis. Ethical and strategic listening, it's listening essentially, but that's a pretty alarming stat that 1 out of every 5 leaders feel that they are an effective listener. So essentially 20% of leaders out there or leaders within your organization feel that they are an effective listener. So we know that we need to approach this change and this shift with empathy. Knowing that creating a listening culture and allowing your teams to share information doesn't come easy for everyone. So whether you yourself are wanting to create a listening culture, or you're wanting to lay the foundation for leaders within your organization to get intentional about becoming a better listener, here are 4 useful steps in getting started. 1, protect against blind spots. Create a culture or an environment where people feel free to challenge you as the leader. This message needs to be consistent, not only to the people who report directly to you, but for the leaders that you report to. If you get stuck in an ivory tower mindset, the gap between your perception and the reality of what's happening in your organization will grow. That gap will grow, and you will create blind spots for yourself. 2, give permission to share bad news. Oftentimes, people will not give you the full picture, simply because they themselves do not want to tell you what you don't want to hear. A good way to change this is to lead by example. So don't only share just the good news with your team and hide the challenges. Share the bad news and collaborate on the solution. Listen without judgment or an agenda. Leaders can find it challenging to remain fully present. And according to a study done by PwC, leaders are typically solving anywhere between 10 to 20 problems at any given time. Ethical listening can be described as listening with an open mind and being able to hear what people are actually saying. So the good, the bad, the ugly. Strategic listening is being able to take that information and knowing how to improve or what to do with it at the very least. All of which are skills that can be learned by being more present. Actively seek input. Most of our outreach to seek input is done virtually, of course. We don't get to rely much on our verbal cues. And we have to get really intentional and really active in the questions that we ask our team and how we engage with them. So questions that you can ask would be things like, what am I doing that you want me to keep doing? What are things I should stop doing or significantly modify? What are things I should start doing a lot more of? Is there anything else you want to tell me? One thing that I've stopped doing, or try to anyways, is I've stopped asking the question, does that make sense? What that tells the person who I'm engaging with is that I don't believe that they are capable of being an effective leader, or listener, sorry. And also what I'm telling them is that I don't believe that I am an effective communicator. So the exchange that we've just had has been completely kiboshed in me asking that one question. So in closing, I say to everyone that, you know, in your Zoom meetings and maybe one day back in a boardroom, if you look around and you see everyone smiling and the only thing that you can think is that everyone looks so happy, it means that you're not listening, because they are more than just happy. So thank you to everyone who joined today. And thank you to Kata for the wonderful introduction. Thank you to the HR Social Camp and to all the sponsors and to the wonderful MC for today. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Awesome. Jamie, so I have a question.
Was I off the whole time?
You weren't sharing a screen.
Oh my gosh, could you see me at least?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was at least talking, you could see me, but not my presentation? Oh, it was such a good PowerPoint. I'm so bummed.
Do you want to go back and show anything? Is there anything you want to like pull up?
No, it's okay. I can share it to everyone afterwards as well if they want a copy.
Okay, sweet. I don't know if anyone has any questions they kind of want to jump in with and start with here, because I know I do. So I guess I can start it. Jamie, have you personally experienced working for a company that didn't actively listen to their employees, or was stuck in, like, as you said, like their own listening bubble?
Yeah, I mean, I have. And I think so much of that experience comes down to individual leaders. So very rarely is it like a systemic or company-wide problem. So much that I've experienced anyways has come from leaders who are they themselves stuck in listening bubbles. But to be really honest and really transparent, I know that I have been stuck in a listening bubble, and becoming a better and stronger listener has something that's taken me time. And I thought even when I founded my own company and got the chance to create this wonderful culture and you know, service for our clients, I thought it would be not perfect, nothing's perfect, but I thought that I would, you know, be able to be really strong in areas where I've not experienced strength in leadership. And I know now, looking back, that that was probably one of my weaknesses also.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. I guess if you're looking back to say, like, compared to like 5 years ago, do you think employers now in like 2021 are much better at creating a listening culture or environment? Not much better? What are you seeing there?
I think that based on what I've seen in the marketplace, like based on working with clients, you know, everything from founder to their investors to talent leaders and HR, you know, people leaders, that access to information, whether it is, you know, actively solicited or not, is a lot greater. Like, we have more and better access. So I think it's allowed us to naturally be better listeners, whether we're actively trying or being intentional about doing so. But I also think that this past year alone has probably propelled the need and also, you know, the forces to be a better listener. Like I said earlier, like, we can't rely on a lot of the cues that we used to rely on. And so much of it is being really active and intentional in that listening.
Amazing. All right, so it looks like we have a question from Lynn. What are your thoughts on pulse surveys to get feedback from employees and stay interviews?
Yeah, great question. I love that. I think in general that feedback, like, so, you know, whether it's a feedback on interviews or feedback on performance, I think that whatever the feedback that you're wanting to get from somebody, I think that it has to be really taken with a grain of salt, because you have to think about who you're asking the feedback from. So you have to really trust their ability to give it, you know, honest and genuine and constructive feedback. Anyone can give feedback, right? It's just a matter of whether they've got the strength to do it effectively or not. And I think that feedback and information like that needs to be continuous and always versus just sort of a one-time transaction. So I find a lot of like surveys and stuff like that can be very reactive. And so when there's just one survey or one point of communication when it comes to feedback, really take it with a grain of salt. Really try and create data points, like multiple points of communication when it comes to feedback and surveys.
Amazing. Awesome. Thanks, Lynn, for the question. All right, so I have another one for you.
Okay.
So running your own company, obviously, that's a big deal. You probably run into a lot of different things. But what are some of the practices that you use at the leadership agency to really let your employees know like they are heard, their input is valid? What do you do with that?
Great question. One thing that we've done from day one that I don't ever really see changing, we've done a lot of things that maybe we've sort of discontinued or we've enhanced or we've like expanded, but the one thing that has stayed really consistent in what we do is something called morning meeting. And we do it every day at 8:45. It's a non-negotiable. Obviously things are going to come up, but it means just like it holds me and my leadership team accountable to making sure that it happens no matter what. And it's a really quick meeting. And what that meeting does is it allows everyone to talk about good news. Obviously, we celebrate a lot, but we also talk about challenges and where help is needed. And it's a really great learning opportunity because, a lot of what we do is the same in my company. So if someone's experiencing a challenge or needs help with something, the likelihood that someone else is going to experience the same challenge and can learn from that is really good. But it also, I've learned a lot from those meetings, hearing my team, share frustrations about certain things to do with our service, and it's empowered me to change like our service agreement, how we communicate to clients, how we set expectations, because when you actually, extract and sort of deduce what they're saying, so much of it comes from areas of improvement. And I have the power to do that. So it's been something that, almost 5 years we've done consistently every day. And I think also too, the other thing is we do a lot, on continuous, we have like a anonymous survey bank, so to speak, where, employees and team members can literally write in whatever they want. They're like, for example, hey, I want a toaster oven in the office. Like, whatever it is, it's like, okay, cool, we'll get you a toaster oven. But some people are scared to say, hey, I'd like a toaster oven. It seems like a really weird ask, but things like that. Or they're like, hey, I want to be able to leave at 4:45 because I want to catch my train. It's like, okay, great, everyone can leave at 4:45. It's the littlest of things, but such important learning comes out of it.
Amazing. So then I think a lot of the times people, when they do their all hands or their team meetings, they're like, let's share the good stats. Let's share what's going really well. What advice would you have for people that are a little afraid of sharing the maybe not so great things, to honestly truly create an open kind of listening culture, right? Of being honest, being open about everything. What would be your advice for people that are afraid to share the not so great things?
Yeah, that's a great question. And my advice to anyone on that, and I have to say that that's probably the most consistent challenge I've seen in all the organizations, and I've recruited for over 300 companies. So it's consistent, is to lead by example. So you have to do it yourself. You have to do it. When you say, I'll isolate the morning meeting, for example, the not so great feedback, you really want to make sure it's not personal. So you don't ever want to, in a morning meeting like that, or in a group setting, say, hey, your client presentation was really awful. Nothing personal like that. Or hey, it was really silly that you forgot to share your screen. You never really want to share personal feedback like that. You want to say, listen, I experienced this with a client and I really should have done this. Or I'm seeing a lot of this happen. What are your thoughts? Really sharing, what you're struggling with as a leader. And really collaborating on the solutions. So much of what I decide to do or how I solve problems, sometimes I come up with the ideas, but so much of it comes from my team. Literally they're like, well, have you tried this? Or why don't you say this? And so I think a lot of people see it as, you know, a weakness. They're like, people want their leaders to know all the answers, and so very rarely do we actually know all the answers. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an important part, right? Because you're hiring people for a reason and you want to empower them. So everyone gets to work together. So that's incredible. I love that. It's very cool. And then I guess another question I have for you, and like talking about like an information bubble, I think you see it a lot in companies as they scale, where people start to get siloed. You have, right, the head of a department up here, and you have about 4 layers between maybe someone who's an individual contributor. So a lot of the information gets lost sometimes, right? Because people kind of hold that information close to their chest. Have you experienced anything like that? And like, again, what would be your advice on helping leaders kind of open up and like sharing more of the information to like everyone throughout the company?
Yeah, that's a great question. A great example too. So I think this is sometimes like, there's really no way around it. You know, the bigger the organization, the less access, right? So not even just like the bigger the organization, but sometimes there's just a real limited amount of access depending on how the organization is structured, is how I should say it. And I think the best way is to create and like ways to communicate that are really easy. Right. So like if you don't have the time or the structure isn't there for you to share information or for leaders to do so, like create really easy ways. Like if it's as simple as sending like top 3 like hot takes of the week to the whole team, or like whatever it is that is just really easy and can be scaled and that can be consistent, I think is a really good way to do it. Like I love like reading, or I used to like when I worked for companies, like quarterly reports and things like that, because you learn so much, but that's very intensive, and you know not all companies are going to do things like that, but like seeing data and like insight, and like people really crave that information, and so it doesn't always have to be so formal, where it's really time consuming and so on. So just finding a way to make it really, really easy and consistent.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I could ask you questions this whole time, but I want to make sure if anyone else has any questions that they want to ask Jamie, please use this time in the Q&A. So Courtney has one for you here. So what's your advice on getting more comfortable and impactful with giving and receiving feedback? Really good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thanks, Courtney. What's your advice on getting more comfortable, impactful with giving and receiving? Okay. I think I'll go with like what I've learned as a leader, and also what I've seen and sort of in the market as well. Sort of 2 examples. So I think for me, the comfort level I've definitely gotten more comfortable by being really like just leading with empathy. So like feedback, you don't know, no matter what you say or what your intentions are, how it's going to be received. Like literally, like you could be saying the nicest things and giving someone so much praise and really truly mean it. Like this could be coming from like the bottom of your heart. But you don't know how that's actually going to make someone feel. Like it might make them feel really uncomfortable. They might not like hearing good things about themselves. Like it might evoke like other emotions or trigger things. And so the thing is that like, it doesn't matter sometimes what you're saying. It can be good, it can be constructive. The best thing to do is just to be really empathetic and really put yourselves in their shoes. And the one thing that I've learned is I've asked people, how do you like to receive feedback? Like, what are some ways that I can construct this for you or frame it in a way that's going to feel good and resonate with you? In a way that is not going to trigger you. So like asking questions in advance, like it's like I ask all of our clients, like new clients especially, what is the best way to communicate with you? Do you like text messages? Do you like emails? Do you like this? Like really finding out a rhythm in advance. And I think that that's probably the best way, is just leading with empathy and asking the questions. And then one thing I've noticed and I've seen consistent in terms of effective communication, like with clients and candidates when interviews. There's a lot that happens in interviews, as we all know. Like sometimes we hear the good, the bad, the ugly from our clients or from our candidates, and we're like, oh my goodness, like how did that happen? And it's not necessarily feedback that like we can share with candidates or clients can share with candidates, and you're just like, okay, let's just close this door and hope that no one asks for feedback. So a lot of the times people just sort of make up things, to close the door and walk away, so to speak. But what I've seen be, really effective is providing top 3. So that's something that has really been effective. Like, here are the top 3 things that you did really well in the interview. I like that you came prepared. I like that you had great questions. You had a strong handshake, like whatever it is. Top 3 things. I guess you can't really handshake now, but and then here are the top 3 things I would improve on. So providing top 3 has been really, I've seen, be really effective.
Awesome. I like that. Thank you, Courtney, for that question.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney.
Another question. I've spent some time in recruiting myself as well. But what have you noticed, I guess, especially over the last year, like trying to do this all remote, and I've never done it from an agency kind of setting too. So I've only ever done in-house. Has it been like, what's been the experience there, and what is some feedback you're getting from some of the candidates? Because I imagine also this is probably a little bit of a scary time to be looking for a job as well.
Yeah, it's actually so weird. Like, recruiting has never been harder. Like, how people make decisions about their careers or their choices about their careers, the psychology has completely shifted. Like, it is a whole new world in terms of recruitment when on the candidate side. And it's a whole new world on the client side as well. Like I said earlier, like HR and talent has been so resilient and so transformative, but there's a lot that we've all gone through, right? So now making hiring decisions and making career decisions are completely different than they used to be. And so, like, getting to know that psychology has been exciting and challenging all at the same time. But I think a lot of people thought that there's going to be way more people in the market because of the layoffs and the response to COVID, and all of a sudden recruitment's going to be really easy because there's more people. And that's a total misnomer. It was never the case. Yes, there were layoffs and absolute people lost their jobs and changes were made. I'm not denying that. But what it did is it changed how people make decisions. And, people started to look at their careers as like, not just a paycheck or just like, the next promotion. It was like, hey, I want to work for a company that has meaning or impact or, whatever it is. Like, people are making some serious decisions about that. But I think that the most challenging thing has been asking for people for their time. Like, hands down, that is the most sensitive and most precious thing right now that we have, or that we don't have, I should say. So really finding ways to be creative and respectful of what we're actually asking of people, clients, but more importantly on this question, of candidates.
Amazing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Cool. I mean, I can keep going.
It's totally up to you.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's interesting because I can imagine, I think there's a stat somewhere where it's showing that like for every job seeker or like an engineer, say in Toronto, there's 3 companies looking to hire them too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So would you would you have any advice for if there's any people here working for a company that's trying to hire right now and it's a little hectic, on how to really stand out? And like you were saying, it's like, it's different now, what's appealing to candidates and what will work for people. So what's kind of your like advice, I guess, for any companies looking to hire right now?
Yeah, that's exciting. I love that. And, it's what we talk about all the time. So this is great. I think that the best thing to lead with, like, first of all, okay, the first thing you have to do is get rid of your job descriptions. Like, job descriptions are meant for internal, they're meant to be whatever you're going to do with them internally, but don't post a job description in our very traditional way. It's, I've been saying this for a long time, but more importantly now than ever. And if you are going to post a job description, I'm not saying get rid of, there shouldn't be anything there, but redesign it completely. Like, keep all your internal language out of the job description. Create a language that's common. Like, people want to know, like, what are your values? Like, what's unique about your company? Like, what problems is your product or your products or your services solving in the marketplace? Are you disruptive? Are you displacing competitors? Are you like lighting the world on fire? Like, what are you doing? Like, what is your company doing and why is your company doing it? So like really leading, like think about it this way. Like, I don't know if there's anyone in the audience or here listening that ever sold media before. I used to work for Monster, and there's what's called above the fold and below the fold. And this is a trick that I tell people even with their resumes, is that below the fold is like your monitor, essentially. It's what people see, right? If you have to scroll down to read the rest, it's like sort of like the idea and concept of page 2 of Google. Like, no one's going there. Like, it's not happening. So like, don't bother. So like, really make the top, like above the fold, super impactful. And every inch of that screen or every inch of that job ad is really precious real estate. So like, share everything about the company that would make someone want to consider you as an employer. The second is change how you look at talent and experience. So much of your pipeline, like people who apply to jobs, will only apply, like women especially. There's a stat, it's an old one, Harvard I think came up with it, but like if a woman doesn't see something like 90% of her skills on a job ad, she's not going to apply. And so like really stay away from language that's really skill-based, hard skill-based, and really talk about the talent of someone that you're looking for. And I think 80%, this is a cool stat, 80% of business-to-business brands have never been heard of. So if you ask 10 people or 100 people, where they want to work, whether they're new grads or executives, they're going to say companies like Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Amazon, and the answers are typically the same in their response. It doesn't matter their skill set or their career level, because we don't know so many of the brands and companies that are out there if they're business to business. And so a lot of us work for tech companies, high growth, startups that no one's ever heard of. And so, if you're a company that's a 25-person A-round fintech company that no one's ever heard of, and you post a job for a VP of sales, and Google posts a job for a VP of sales, like they're going to win the war in volume there. So you got to get creative.
I love that too, because I think one of the things we've all probably seen, if we can't afford to pay like the Facebook or the Google salaries, is you have to get creative in ways to attract them. And I love the above the fold. I love that. Mm-hmm. Get back to my team.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
That's amazing. All right, sweet. So we have another question. All righty. So Stephanie says, this is eye-opening. Can you give a more concrete example of how a good job posting, according to your point of making it different from a JD, what that kind of looks like?
Yeah. I wish I could hack away right now, and clearly I haven't demonstrated my skills on sharing my screen, so I'm not going to do that. But I think the best is, what I would do, Stephanie, is go to LinkedIn, or I think LinkedIn is probably the best platform because it does a really good job of keeping the integrity of your posting, right? Like if you go to Indeed, it's all aggregated. I love Indeed, but whatever, it's aggregated. So you get lost in sort of translation, but LinkedIn does have a nice platform for that. And just Google a job search a job like VP sales, and you'll find 10 listings, probably 1,000, but just choose 10 and look for the ones that look good and sort of evoke that, hey, if I were a VP of sales, this is what I would apply for, or head of talent or whatever it is. And you'll start to see consistencies. And I think that what you'll see be consistent is there are not a lot of bullets. Like a job description is a ton of bullets where it's here are the 45 things that we're looking for in somebody, right? So the above the fold, really make it eye-catching, even at where you're talking about here are the 10 things that make us amazing. That's what people are going to really gravitate towards. Or here are the 5 problems that this company is solving in the market. Here are the 10 reasons why this job is amazing. And here are the 3 things we're looking for. So really use that as a sort of a checks and balances or for the posting.
Awesome. All right, Stephanie, thank you for that question. Okay, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
I think now, as we're going remote, people are seeing a lot of, they're trying to get creative in their like job postings, like you were saying. So I've seen quite a few of these like video ones on LinkedIn, right? Where people are like, hey, we're looking for like a new recruiter to join our team. This is a little bit about us. And you kind of get to know the personality of the person on the other end. What are your thoughts on those? Have you and your team ever thought about kind of using those with your clients?
Yeah, if I'm honest, I don't hate them if they're done well, right? And I know that you can say that for anything, but the videos are the ones that I've seen anyways aren't done very well, and it actually sort of creates this like, like it's sort of a negative reaction where it's like, I don't know if I want to work for a company that like thinks that that's a good idea.
It's like a little awkward sometimes.
Yeah. So like, but there's so much technology and like so much enhancement or enhancement tools, so many enhancement tools at our fingertips now that like, I bet you if you Google like, video enhancement or like we can create stuff that is such, good content. So my recommendation is that if you do create something like that, take it to the next level and really make sure that it's like content that you would relate with 100%. Like back in the day, like not even that long ago, because we've done videos, like we'd have to hire like a freelance videographer and you have to have all the right lighting and like, it's a big deal and really expensive. So I'd say like take advantage of technology on that.
Amazing. Okay, cool. So I'm going to throw into the chat right now some contact information for Jamie and her team. So this is their Twitter handle if you want to kind of tweet them some more questions or maybe some reactions to the presentation, and also an email if you have any further questions about this or want to explore more about the leadership agency. So this was an amazing session. Jamie, thank you so much. I feel like I learned a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for participating as well and showing up. I hope you all enjoyed it as well. I think next up there's an interactive like lunch activity. So this will be an interactive wellness activity on dissolving your stress. So please do enjoy, and then also feel free to check out all the different booths, do some networking, get to know some people, make some new connections. But again, Jamie, thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye, guys.
Okay. Bye.